Is $2,500 gold the new norm? What is the best type of silver to stack for new stackers? And why do stackers reject the fact that there could be a massive pullback in gold? These are just a few of the many questions that we are answering in today's video, and I'm going to be joined by Josh from My Coin and Bullion to do it. You see, we asked you guys to leave us some questions and then we would answer them in this video, and that is exactly what we are doing. So let's get into it by looking at some of these questions and getting some great answers from a coin shop owner. But before we do me a favor, please go down and make sure you are subscribed. Many people watching don't realize they're not subscribed yet, and we're almost at 200,000 subscribers, so I'd love for you to be one of them. Another year, another monster box of silver. For 2024, SD Bullion is giving away a full monster box of their 1 ounce silver Tree of Life coins. You can enter this giveaway all year, but I suggest that you do it now by going to sdbullion.com/sweepstakes and make sure you enter today. Thank you to SD Bullion for sponsoring my channel. All right, guys, so we are back once again with Josh, and as you know from the intro, I want to go over some of these comments, and we've got some really good ones for you guys, so thank you for leaving the comments on that community tab post. Josh, I want to start with this one. So this guy says, this is at Silver Rhino, he says, Josh, have you ever not bought gold from a customer because of spot price? Harry from Silver Dragons quit buying gold for 5 hours on a Saturday because spot price had jumped over 2,500, and people in the comments freaked out on him. I think people's biggest concern is that they want to have the option to take advantage of the volatility in the market and cash out when it's high, but they felt like Harry took that option away from them. I totally understand his logic that he needed to protect his business as well. What is your thoughts on this? Like, as a dealer, have you ever had a time where you stopped buying gold because the spot price was too high?
No, not yet. I'm not saying that won't happen, and I honestly totally agree with what Harry decided there. You know, yes, I completely agree that customers should have the option to take advantage of ups and, well, sometimes downs if they're buying in the markets. But the important thing on that comment was they said it was on a Saturday. Markets are closed Saturday. Wholesalers are closed Saturday. So there's a reason that a lot of coin shops aren't open on Saturdays, although most coin shows, if not all, always fall on the weekend. It makes it real tough with the volatility in markets for coin dealers to protect themselves from the ups and downs. So no, I have not specifically refused to buy gold because of a quick uptick in price over the weekend, but I've been real hesitant about selling.
Fair enough.
On the weekend. Sometimes when there might be a big price drop right at the end of the day, Friday, a bunch of people are clamoring to buy over the weekend. And now I don't know what the price is going to be Monday morning when I can replace it. So I understand Harry's logic. I hope the viewers do too. But, you know, yes, we're here to provide a service to the community, but honestly, we're not under any obligation to ever buy your gold. But that's what we're in business to do. And if the opportunity is right, and 99% of the time it probably is, yeah, we're happy to do that and serve the community in that sense. But there are outliers in certain times where it can be very dangerous to a business, especially if it's a large amount.
Fair enough. So let me ask you a couple of questions on that. Could Harry, and granted, they probably would have been just as mad at him for this, but could Harry have just bought it quite a bit cheaper than he normally does? So let's say an Eagle, he's buying, you know, 10 or 20 bucks over spot. Maybe he buys it $50 back of spot to protect himself. Is that something he could have done? Is that something you would do?
Possibly. I know many other dealers that have done that. And, you know, honestly, you have to protect yourself on the weekend. You know, $50 back is maybe a little aggressive for an Eagle, but there again, maybe not. It can swing $50 in a matter of minutes. So I think bottom line, the reason I have not refused to buy when prices have spiked, when markets are closed, is because I'm comfortable making an offer at a number I choose. And it's probably not the same number if markets were open. To your point, yeah, I would offer a little less just to protect myself, to hedge a little bit. It might be $10, $15 less on an ounce of gold, just to protect myself, to ensure that, you know, I don't wake up and I'm underwater on that piece of gold.
That makes sense. And you know, you had mentioned also on the selling side, like if it drops a lot on the weekend, you have to sell it. And you don't know if you'll be able to replace it before it spikes back up Monday morning. You know, that happened February of 2021. You know what that is, don't you?
Yeah.
The beginning of the silver squeeze. I put out a video. It was funny, I'll tell you. I put out a video about that happening because what had happened is APMEX had pulled, and it wasn't just APMEX, it was all the bullion dealers, but APMEX was the one that I noticed first, that, you know, my viewers noticed first. had pulled all of their silver from availability. Like everything was gone. There was nothing to buy. And they did it until the markets reopened because they were worried because of the whole silver squeeze and all the people buying that it was going to jack the price way up and they wouldn't be able to replace it. So have you ever not sold, kind of like what happened on the silver squeeze because the spot price dropped right before the market closed and you were afraid it was going to go back up on Monday or something?
Well, I can tell you in my early career, I did business on the weekends because I would set up at flea markets and coin shows. Now that I have the shop, I'm kind of limited on weekends when I'm open, Saturdays when I'm open. I'm never open on a Sunday. But yeah, I will still sell. But there again, to your point in February of 2020, or, we get a similar event that happens and the price gets real volatile in either direction. Yeah, I would guess most dealers are going to be real hesitant to do any buying or selling when the market's not open, just because of the inability to A, liquidate excess to wholesalers, or B, replace inventory they sold from wholesalers. So it is a tricky situation, but I can't speak for all dealers, but I know several personally that, have been kind of, you know, guides for me, I guess, in my young career. I'm not all that young anymore, but compared to some of the guys I am, I guess. But they've kind of made me understand that you kind of need, when the market's closed, to our point, that you do need to hedge a little. So be a little careful when you're buying and selling on the weekend.
Fair enough. This comment actually comes from the same guy. This is from Silver Rhino, and he also says, with central banks buying and stacking gold, do you ever think we will see a day when you can walk into a bank and sell them my gold? I feel very restricted in my options to sell. I do not have good LCSs in my area, unfortunately. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but what do you think? Will banks ever buy gold again?
Maybe. Now, I would say it would be more of an exchange than of course, you can look at it as a buy, but maybe at some point our financial system will get to an asset-backed currency. Maybe. If that happens, and banks have to back their assets in tier one assets like gold, yeah, maybe that will be an option. But at that point, are they really buying it? I guess you're giving them their gold or your gold, and they're giving you whatever our gold-backed currency is. I can see that maybe happening someday, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think there's not enough gold to back our currency right now for sure. So it would not be backing the US dollar.
Yeah, everything would have to revalue. There's way too many dollars out there, way too many. And that's part of our whole problem.
Yeah,
That it can't be backed. So the whole system would have to reset in order for that scenario to play out. That's how I look at it.
Exactly. All right, next up, this one comes from the most Sly Fox. He says, why do stackers reject the fact that gold could correct down 20% or more? Its value tracing up is attributed mostly to its artificial classification as a tier one asset, which you actually just kind of spoke to, or you called it a tier one asset. And if you look at the charts before that, it maintained a steady 8 to 12% growth a year. This is just me. I don't actually believe that it couldn't do that. In fact, I say all the time, it absolutely could have a pretty large correction, and that, you should never bank every single dollar you have on gold or silver maintaining its value. But what are your thoughts there?
I agree 100%. I think part of the issue why so many stackers reject that thought is there's too many talking heads that pump up the price and make it seem like there is no downside. And I know you do not do that, which is great. And I do not do that either. But there's enough people out there that do talk about, in my opinion, unrealistic numbers that gold and silver can hit. Gold to 5,000 by year end. I've been hearing that for 5 years. Well, we're halfway there now. But it never fits the timeline that people are pumping it up to be. So, yeah, maybe most stackers, I can't speak to that, think that there is no potential large downside, but there absolutely is. It's a risk that you take when you put your cash into precious metal. I think you and I both would agree that we think it's important that everybody should probably own some precious metal to diversify, but it is no guarantee. So, where he's coming from, maybe there are a lot of stackers in his area that just don't see the downside, and they're so ingrained and so, hyper focused on the upside, they're blind to the reality of the market. So that can be very dangerous. And I think part of the responsibility lies on the YouTube community that you and I are in to try to bring people back down to earth to let
Yeah,
them know that it's not all rainbows and sunshine. I mean, there can be some dark clouds and markets can tank. So you just got to prepare yourself mentally for that when it happens.
for sure. I
And I
mean,
noticed I said when, I didn't say if, because there will be corrections. There always are.
absolutely, I agree. And I mean, you can see in history it happened before. I mean, it's, silver, for example, in 2011 hit $50 an ounce and then it dropped back into the mid teens. You think
Yep.
that can't happen again? You think that can't happen with gold? Come on. So it doesn't make any sense to think like that. But I don't know. We'll see. Okay, this one comes from MM03248. He says, since they are at least somewhat similarly priced, is a 10th ounce gold coin or a 10 ounce silver bar a better buy? What are your thoughts there, Josh?
Well, you're asking a big believer in silver to answer a question, silver versus gold. So obviously I'm going to choose silver, but I can tell you why. 10th ounce gold, although premiums have come down quite a bit, this is what I'm charging. For a 10th ounce gold eagle, I'm charging 14% over melt. Okay, so that's about 280 or maybe $290 now for a 10th ounce of gold, where you can buy a 10 ounce silver bar for about a 6% premium. So from looking at it at a premium perspective, you're paying 14% for that gold above its, value from a melt perspective, maybe 5 or 6% on a 10 ounce bar. So I'm going to pick the 10 ounce bar every day of the week. There might be situations where I would change my mind, but just based on where ratios between the two are right now, and my belief that silver is quite undervalued in relation to gold, I would buy the silver bar. How about you?
I absolutely agree. I'm pretty big in the silver right now. I do obviously stack gold as well, but with where the numbers are, with gold being dang near at all-time highs and silver not even being I guess it is a little over halfway there, but barely being halfway there, it just doesn't make sense to me to get gold when silver has such an upside potential. And like we had just spoke to, there is, of course, is a downside risk as well. I'm not saying that silver is guaranteed to hit 50 or 60 an ounce, but I think the upside potential is so much on silver that that's just kind of where I'm focused at right now. All right, this one comes from JBeck556. He says, I'd love to see the talk for a brand new stacker on maybe what their focus should be on 90% rounds, sovereigns, or maybe larger bars. Gold? What are your thoughts on that, Josh? I have an opinion here, but we'll let you go first.
Well, I get a lot of new stackers that come in the shop. They always, not always, but usually come in pretty green without much information, not knowing what to buy. So it's my job to give them all the information and allow them to choose what they want to go with. Ultimately, most will choose to buy low premium silver, and not just the lowest premium silver, but low premium silver in smaller sizes. I think divisibility is important. So to a new stacker, I wouldn't recommend just buying kilo or 100-ounce bars. Although that's going to be, some of the lowest premium you can find right now, it's not necessarily the best thing for you in terms of a liquidity standpoint or divisibility. So I would recommend, of course, I'm a big proponent, everybody should know 90% silver. So I would recommend 90% silver, silver rounds. To a beginning stacker, I wouldn't even suggest sovereigns right now, Canadian, Australian, American, anything like that, because of the higher premium. The premiums are never going to get to the point where they are with privately minted stuff, but I think there's a time and place to start stacking sovereigns. And I don't think it's if you're just starting out, because I think from a value perspective, you want to try to get the most for your money in, I believe, small pieces of silver. So, the biggest size bar I would maybe consider if you're starting out is maybe a 10-ounce silver bar. I wouldn't recommend anything bigger to start. That's just my own personal opinion.
I agree 100%. I would definitely stay away from sovereigns, especially the really high price sovereigns. Silver Eagles right now, I think the premiums are still a little bit too high. Even Maples and Krugerrands are just a little bit higher than what you could get for generic 1-ounce rounds. So if you're just getting into it, don't go gung-ho getting all excited about these really cool designs, or I must get an American Eagle, and definitely stay away from slabbed silver as well. So my focus would definitely be on low premium generics, whatever you can get, and 90% silver. Also stay away from fractional silver because the premium's usually too high on that.
Yes.
And the 100 ounce bar thing you said, I agree with that too. And the reason is I see a lot of news. I've been doing this YouTube channel since 2017. I see a lot of new people that get into it and they go gung ho. And if you're going gung ho, you might overdo it. And if you overdo it on 100 ounce bars, you're going to get burnt when you go back to sell them, because you do not get that premium back at all. They usually most shops buy 100 ounce bars back quite a bit cheaper than they would just 101 ounce rounds.
Yep, true.
All right, so this next one comes from Mad Matt Diggs 9518. He says, does he or anyone think that 2,500 is the new normal for a troy ounce of gold, or will it come back down below 2,000? I was saving up to buy some gold when it started going up. Then I put the purchase on hold. I don't know if I should wait or just buy it now anyway. Thanks for the input. So with this comment, it kind of leads back to what we were just talking about. There definitely could be a downside for gold. Does that mean that now is a bad time to buy? Well, I mean, in my opinion, if you're going to be buying gold right now with it being at nearly an all-time high, or if you're wanting to be buying a precious metal right now with gold being nearly at an all-time high, I'd look elsewhere. But, that's just my opinion. Josh, what are your thoughts?
I agree 100%. I'm not buying gold now either, for me. Can it go higher? Sure. Will it? Yeah, I think it will. Nobody knows when. But yeah, that downside risk is there. So for those, is it the new floor, I guess? I think that was his question. Wasn't it something like that? Is that kind of the new floor?
Is 2,500 the new norm?
Yeah. Well, for now, we'll see how long it lasts, though. And I didn't even look at gold price today. Maybe you did, but yesterday it was under 2,500 a little bit. We've been as high as 25. I think it got near 25.30 at one point a week or two ago. So it's been trading in a range where it hasn't had a lot of volatility up and down from a percentage basis. Silver's been moving around much more wildly in terms of percentage, but it's just impossible to predict. And you and I both don't get into predicting price and what's going to happen. But, yeah, for now it is the new normal. So if you do want to purchase gold, you're going to have to pay this new normal price, which is about 2,500 plus the premium. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting into it now, but you sure can.
And I just looked, it's currently 25.14. It's up $18 today. So
oh, really? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah, I think what people need to remember, and we talked about this a little bit earlier with one of the other comments, is that, new norms don't necessarily mean new norms. And gold just hit 2,500 recently. I mean, when silver hit $50 an ounce in 2011, if someone would have asked if that's the new norm, and then I got in front of the camera and said yes, and then, we had that day where it dropped back into the 30s almost immediately. Remember that?
Yeah.
You'd be looking at me pretty funny. So I'm not ever going to say that anything's the new norm with precious metals. There's always going to be volatility. There's always going to be peaks. There's always going to be valleys. I would just say, stack steady. Put into it what you can afford to put into it after savings, after emergency cash, so on and so forth. And then whatever you have left over that you want to invest into gold and silver, that's the money that you do it. That way you have a buffer to deal with that volatility, and you aren't forced to sell it in an opportune time because you went too far in. What do you say?
That's very good advice. I agree 100%.
All right, next one. This one is from Create Craft, and then we kind of touched on this one as well, but it says, when will 1 ounce silver American Eagles ever be practical for stacking? Will those ever be worth buying again in the future? $7 an ounce over spot in my area still seems quite high, over a 24% premium. I have said many times on this channel that my buy price for Eagles is at 4 or lower, and that's the premium, obviously, not the spot price.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to get back there anytime soon, Josh?
Well, define soon. Is soon in the next few weeks or months, or does soon mean in the next couple of years?
Before I die.
When's that going to be? Who knows, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I agree that it's not necessarily practical to stack them right now. $7 over spot in this person's area is a little bit aggressive, at least compared to where I'm at. But yeah, getting back to $4 or less on an Eagle, it might be a while. And, are we ever going to see it? I think we probably will at some point. There's, how the markets work. And, sometimes when, there's an excess of inventory, what happens in the wholesale channels? Well, premiums inevitably come down. So dealers will buy the product and then we can offer it cheaper. And that spurs the retail sales. And so, yeah, I think those situations will happen, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon, because it feels to me like for several years, the U.S. Mint has not kept up with demand on silver Eagles. I think they're I don't know if it's legally or contractually obligated to mint based on demand from authorized purchasers, and they failed miserably with that. So that has had a negative impact on premiums from our perspective, which has driven them up. So are they going to get lower down to your point, $4 or less? There's probably situations, yeah, coming, but nobody knows when. Yeah.
I would say look out for deals, because it was earlier this year that there were specials where you could get Eagles at under 4 an ounce over spot. It was never a normal price, but there were definitely specials where that was the case. And I'm sure it's going to happen again before it actually becomes the norm of being, at that price, because the authorized purchaser amount, how much the U.S. Mint charges the authorized purchasers hasn't went up. So
Right.
the only thing happening here is supply and demand causing those premiums to be where they are. So that's why I'm not buying Eagles right now, even though you have a beautiful
Neither am
silver
I.
eagle right behind your head, Josh.
Yeah, right up there.
Yeah, and thank you for that being the type 1.
Yeah, yep.
Cool.
It's an older sign.
Yeah. All right. So this next one comes from Blanket Therian, and this one actually, I believe, was on your channel. He says, what advice would you give about selling graded coins? For example, Morgan dollars, Peace dollars, super high quality Franklin uncirculated and proof half dollars, old cents, nickels, dimes, quarters, etc. Also, how realistic is it to sell an MS70 and Proof 70 low mintage foreign coins, such as British Queen's Beast, Australian Wedge-tails Eagles, for a good price? And I probably slurred those last 2 words, but that's okay. What are your thoughts there? I'm going to let you do this one.
Well, in terms of getting the most bang for your buck, be a retailer yourself. If you're going to sell to a coin shop, there again, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself and those that I know in the business. We're buying graded coins at a percentage back of gray sheet, and gray sheet is the dealer to dealer wholesale. So, in terms of retail, it's even a further percentage under retail value, just because, at least in my market, most graded coins are slow movers. I don't get a lot of people. I'm mostly a bullion store that sells coins. When I first opened it, I thought I was a coin shop that would sell a little bullion, but it's completely opposite. So when you get a lot of graded coins that come into the shop, at least from my perspective, you have to buy them right. A lot of times, oftentimes, I will end up wholesaling them out to other dealers who might have clients that are looking for those particular coins. So from the customer perspective, if you're trying to maximize what you're getting, I hate to say it, but don't bring it to a coin shop. Try to sell it on your own. Put it on a Facebook marketplace, or a local community garage sale site, or try on your own and set up at a coin show that's in your area. If you truly want to get the most out of your coins, that's what you have to do. And it's not easy. Just because you have it doesn't mean someone's going to buy it. So just be aware of that. In terms of the MS70 and the Proof 70, lower mintage stuff, we've talked about this, the Semi-Numi stuff, right? There again, that's a tough sell too. Not everybody enjoys and loves that stuff, because from my perspective, most of my customers are stackers that are looking to buy the most for the least amount of dollars. So they don't want to pay, $200 for a lower mintage MS70 Queen's Beast coin, for example. But there is a market out there, albeit it's much, much smaller. So same advice again, if you want to get the most for your money, attempt to sell it on your own. Try to find a buyer. If that isn't an option for you, go to a coin shop and, find a reputable one in your area, first of all. But I'm sure you'll get a fair offer. From the dealer's perspective, you might be shocked to learn, wow, I'm only getting, 3/4 of the value back. Well, that's just the reality. The Semi-Numi pieces and graded pieces are a little difficult. There's exceptions, of course. Rare dates always sell well. If you have rare date coins, oftentimes dealers, and myself included, will pay more than gray sheet for key dates, because we oftentimes have customers looking for those coins. So it just really depends. It's tough.
I have a question for you based on what you had just
Yeah.
said here. Do you think the gray sheet is supposed to be dealer to dealer wholesale, but do you think the gray sheet is just becoming a retail sheet? Because it seems like most dealers are buying back of that and selling at sheet at this point.
That's an excellent point, because I basically sell to my customers who want to buy numismatic coins. I sell it to them at gray sheet.
Yeah.
So it is, in a sense, it's still way less. The values are way less in gray sheet for everything across the board in comparison to like a monthly publication you can buy at your local bookstore, like a Coin World or something. But yeah, to your point, you're right. It's
so
becoming
great. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just don't want to forget my thought process. So Graysheet puts out the CPG, which is the price guide, which you're supposed to use for retail. I never see anybody use that. Do you ever use that at all?
No,
No.
no, I
Okay.
get it, but I don't even open it, to be honest. And, from my perspective, typically in the past, if, I have a nice graded Morgan silver dollar and gray sheet on it is $200, retail is going to be 220. I might do 10% on it. If somebody's really interested in it, yeah, I'll sell it for 200. Sure, I'll sell it for gray sheet to move it because I may be paid 170. It's just, I'll make $20 and move on. So from that perspective, yeah, I don't know any dealers that use the retail CPG guide for pricing either. They're just basing it on what gray sheet is and maybe adding a percentage or a dollar amount to make it a full-blown retail price.
So what you're saying is if somebody walks in with coins to sell and they pull out the gray sheet and offer back, and then they go to buy something, they pull out the CPG to price it, maybe go somewhere else.
Yeah, because that would be a gigantic spread. They're probably working on 50% spreads at that point. But there again, everybody's going to operate their business in a way they choose. So if that's what they choose to do,
and you choose what you need to do then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so we only have a couple left. Let's get to this next one. This one comes from Bygone Gent, I believe also on your channel. He says, what is the next semi-numismatic coin trend you see coming? Where might one look at purchases now if they wanted to stay on or ahead of future interest? Also, what's a top 5 list of coin shows you either like going to or want to go to?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a difficult question to answer. Part 1. Oh boy, I might need to defer and ask you for some help on this one. Semi-Numi coin trends that I could possibly see coming. Well,
the new Zombuk series is kind of already out, and there's even a colorized version of that, which I've heard a little bit about. There's also a new TMNT series that's coming out. There's one of the 4 already out. Those are a few things that, have piqued my interest as of late. If you wanted, something from me.
Okay, yeah, that is good. From my perspective, and I'll just tell you things that I like in the Semi-Numi realm are things that are reminiscent of my childhood. And, you and I grew up around the same era. I'm a little older than you, but, like, for example, I have a Beavis and Butthead colorized coin limited to 420, which sure enough, I ordered 10. I kept 4 for my house, 1 for each of my kids, and then my wife and I can share the other one. But that interests me. Are you going to get your money back out of it? There again, Semi-Numi stuff is tough, but in time, you get enough people interested, it could work out. But really anything nostalgic to my childhood, I guess, that's on a piece of silver or even a piece of gold is interesting to me. So is that going to be the new trend that everyone's going to embrace? I don't know, but nostalgia does tend to sell. So I think, things that are nostalgic to you and your era might be things that you want to pick up. In terms of the next question, top 5 coin shows that I've either been to or would like to go to. Full disclosure, I haven't been to a lot of coin shows. Probably, I don't know, 8 different ones in my lifetime. But ones on my bucket list are the Fun Show in Florida. I know that, I've seen videos of it and I know people that have set up there, and it's something that everybody should experience if they're in the hobby, I think, from the sounds of it. So that's definitely on my bucket list. Going to the Central States Coin Show, suburb of Chicago, typically. Long Beach in California. I've heard that's a great show. I know people that set up there as well. I would like to go to a coin show in Las Vegas for nothing else. It's in Las Vegas and there's so much else to do. So it's an excuse to get to Vegas. And then lastly, the Minot Coin Show that I'm the chairman of. We're on our 12th annual and that's coming up here next month. So that's obviously the one I frequented the most because I'm in charge of it. So, but we put on a fairly small show, but we have about 35 tables here in Minot. So I do enjoy that because I get to see a lot of the guys from our region and we can catch up and get to see a lot of fun people.
Fair enough. For me, it's basically all the St. Louis shows as far as ones I've been to. I've been to the July show in St. Louis probably every year for the past 20 years. Fun show I've been to. It's awesome. The A&A Money Show in New Orleans I've been to. I've been to Central States. I've been to Houston. Trying to think where else. I like going to Ravenhawk Coins coin shows out in Oklahoma. He has one out in Mustang, Oklahoma that he puts on twice a year, and one in Norman, Oklahoma that he puts on twice a year as well. I do enjoy going to those. They're very small shows, but they're great shows. And then obviously, and I'm surprised you didn't mention this, Josh, but the Tulsa, Oklahoma coin show That's the one I want you to come to the most so that we can meet. But
I know that crossed my mind, yeah, as I was saying that.
But I guess alternatively, you would then want me to come to the Minot show. So there's a little push.
We can make an arrangement. You could have your own table, and boy, we could do a meet and greet. You could probably sell your autographs there.
I don't sell autographs. Oh, Jesus. I'm not a celebrity, good sir. But the Tulsa show, guys, is a huge one. And the reason it is there's so many YouTubers to go to that. Myself, Rob Finds Treasure, Ravenhawk Coins, and so many others. The entire coin Q&A is at that one. So there's a lot of people at that one. And it's a great show. The US Mint was there this year as well. So that's a huge show. Absolutely recommend you coming to that one as well as everyone else, Josh. I'm just saying.
I'll add it to my bucket list.
All right. There you go. Top, above the fun show.
Fair enough.
The fun show is great, by the way. You should definitely experience it once.
I hope so. Yeah.
All right. So our final question, and we'll wrap it up here. And this one I thought was interesting, and this is specifically for you. It says, do you have any regrets entering the gold and silver business?
Well, that's a good question. No. Well, no, let me back up. Yeah. And I think I regret not getting into it sooner. Earlier in my lifetime, I guess. I've been a collector / stacker for 40 years, but I took about a 20-year break from, well, no, about 18 years, maybe, from teenage years to almost 30 years old. So do I regret that? Yeah, I absolutely regret taking the break, because boy, you look back at what silver prices were and things like that. I wish, for me personally, I would have continued engaged and interested and added to my stack and collection at that point. So but no, in terms of regrets, other than not starting sooner, no, I'm thrilled that I can do this. I meet a lot of great, interesting people. It's just really been a fun ride. I mean, seeing the joy on people's faces when they're able to pick up their precious metal or find that hard to find coin that they can pick up in my shop, that's really gratifying for me, just that I can help them achieve their goals. So yeah, no regrets, other than I wish I would have started sooner.
Fair enough. Well, Josh, this is going to be a very long video, so we're actually going to make this a YouTube premiere. I hope that you can be at it and chat with people in the chat while this is running. And if you're watching this right now during the premiere, say something into live chat and just say hello to Josh and I, because I will definitely be there, and I hope Josh is as well. So
I will too.
Awesome. So guys, Josh has his own coin shop, as you know, in Minot, North Dakota. He also has his own YouTube channel called Minot Coin and Bullion. I'm going to put a link for that down below. Do me a favor, make sure you go over there and subscribe. I'm sure he would love to have you over there. And leave some comments and watch his videos too, right? You want him to do that, right?
That'd be great.
But yeah, seriously, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And Josh, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. I always have a great time.
Anytime. We'll see you next time.